Yo, what is up, guys? First of all, I want to thank all the new viewers, all the commenters, all the subscribers, all the likers, all the viewers, every single one of you. I want to thank you for interacting with my channel, for watching my videos, for just giving me your attention. I hope you guys get some enjoyment out of it. I hope you guys get some substance out of it. In this video, I wanted to do it about Adam 22 masterfully playing his cards to get Suspect out of there, to give himself a justification to get him out of there, and to capitalize off of it whilst he does it. But first, I want to show you guys this clip, right, where Adam 22 paints a picture that Lush put Suspect in this situation with Brandon on the podcast because he knows that Suspect is going to go out and get himself fired. Check out the clip and then I'll explain my theory regarding Adam 22.
Was an easy decision. That being said, I feel like you're trying to pivot away from the fact that you wanted to get Suspect out the paint so bad that you set him up in an environment in which you knew that he would resort to violence because you still hold a lingering animosity towards Suspect because of the way that he
laid you out,
knocked you on your ass.
It's actually quite.
All right, guys. So you heard that right. Adam 22 jokingly is painting a picture that Lush got Suspect and Brandon together on this podcast because he knew that Lush would act out of order and that would get him fired. All right, that is Adam 22's little joking theory about Lush. Now, here is the reality, right? Adam 22, let's first start with assessing Adam 22. Adam 22 is a 40-something-year-old multi-millionaire entrepreneur in the media industry. He knows how this works, and he's been doing it for at least over a decade, right? He's been keeping his channel running through the different eras, through the SoundCloud era, through this gangster era that they just went through, and now he's trying to progress into a new era, and that's why he's trying to bring people like Brandon on, who he says is a smart individual, is a clean-cut character, and it's different from what No Jumper has been presenting for a while. Now, here's my theory, all right? Adam 22 and whoever management is up there at No Jumper wanted to get rid of Suspect. If you look at the comments, nobody likes Suspect. If you look at the chat during the live podcasts and all that, everyone talks shit about Suspect, all right? Now, who is Suspect? Suspect is this lowbrow street character. He's this low character, bruh, who should have stayed in high school and should have got good grades, right? He didn't become a gangster in the sense that he didn't join a gang or do any of that nonsense. He was never any real pimp, right? Imagine being a prostitute for Suspect. I mean, you literally have to be retarded to be a prostitute for Suspect, bruh. So he's never been a real pimp. He's some lowbrow street individual who should have got a job, and he had a little bit of a rap career. He didn't capitalize on it. He didn't maximize his potential. He just got into a little beef with Frosty the Snowman, and he fell off. And then you find him years later on No Jumper talking shit every once in a while. But even then, he really didn't bring much to the channel, right? Every highlight of Suspect is him getting in some bickering argument with someone, whether it's a woman like Jay Leese, or whether it's with Brandon, or whether it's with that fake pimp, that other fake pimp that he punched in the face, right? And so you could imagine why No Jumper, being that they're trying to go in a different direction, this lowbrow street individual who's not a real gangster, who's not a real street person, who just tries to sit there, appease people, you could see why they try to get rid of a guy like him. Now, No Jumper, probably being that Suspect is a face card, he's a host, he's well known, he's been on No Jumper for years, being that he's that kind of character, they probably felt that they couldn't just easily just fire him, because then the argument would be, and a lot of the fan base and people would be saying, like, look at how Adam uses up young black men, and then when they're not useful anymore, he just fires them for no reason, right? And so to protect themselves and to insulate themselves from that kind of criticism, they conspired, right? They planned to have Suspect on the podcast with Brandon, knowing that Suspect is not going to let go of any previous animosity, knowing how Suspect is, that he's prone to violence, knowing that they're going to get some type of major reaction out of Suspect, and that they can use that as a justification to then fire him. That is the reality of it, all right, guys? You have to think that this guy, Adam 22, and whoever the hell Josh is, and whoever held the big management at No Jumper are, they're thinking these things through, and they're smart players, man. They've been doing this for a very long time. They make a lot of money in it, and that means they have a lot of money on the line. It's a big business, but they don't want to just fire an individual, because the backlash would be, look at how you just use up these black men, you pretend to be their friend, and then you just get rid of them for no reason, and so on and so forth. So to insulate themselves from that type of criticism, they created this scenario. They put a Suspect on the podcast with Brandon, knowing that Suspect is a person who gets into these nagging arguments that have no result, where he just tries to degrade the person he's arguing with like a bratty woman. And they understood that they've previously also almost came to a fight, and that this time they would absolutely come to a fight or some type of altercation that they can then use to justify the firing of Suspect. Furthermore, they had security at the podcast. Adam 22 has previously said that the only time they bring in security on the podcast is when they think someone could be prone to creating a dangerous environment, right? When someone is prone to violence. That's the only time they have security on the podcast. And so, being that security was present, and it was just a regular podcast without any outside characters. It's not Ruga. It's not some Chicago rapper they have some sort of animosity with, or some LA rapper they have some sort of animosity with. It's all podcast hosts that have been on the podcast previously. They brought security because they knew there was a potential for an altercation between Suspect and Brandon, where Suspect would be the initiator, because he's done that previously on the show many times, where he has shown that he is prone to violence. So they leverage that, they use that to get a justification to get Suspect fired, being that they want to replace him with Brandon, right? And that, I think, is the reality of the situation, because you'd have to be a fucking idiot to put Suspect on the show with Brandon and not think that an altercation would occur. And no podcast goes on without getting the okay from Josh and Adam. And then furthermore, you see how this podcast was made when Adam 22 left LA to go to New York City. So it's further giving him some distance from the decision making. But in reality, I think that these individuals, Adam 22 and whoever upper management at No Jumper is, conspired to get Suspect fired, to create some controversy that's going to bring in views. So it's going to also bring in views when they actually fire him. It's going to reach, like, a lot of popularity. It's going to go viral. And so it starts off a new era for No Jumper, where they show that they're not going to accept this kind of stuff anymore, and they're going to get rid of these lowbrow street antic behavior. That's the reality of it, guys. Once Brick Baby left, the other street dudes on the channel, like Young and Hefe and Munchie B, they're not the same as Brick Baby. They're not willing to sit up there and provide that kind of insight, that kind of information, that kind of entertainment, And so they're like, bruh, this street stuff isn't going to work anymore. You know, people are moving away from it. They're losing interest in it. It was exciting a little bit there when Brick Baby was on the channel and a lot of these other gangbangers were on the channel. And there was every week there was a new controversy. It was exciting a little bit after the indictment came. After the indictments came, everyone else backed away. No more gangbanging and all shit. No more Brick Baby saying 60s and all that shit. So they're moving into a different direction. They're trying to bring on some different type characters like Brandon, and they're getting rid of Suspect. And they just created the scenario where it gave them a justification to get rid of Suspect, to go viral, and to set an example. Right, guys? That's my theory. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think, man. Again, I want to thank all the subscribers, all the new subscribers, all the viewers, all the likers, all the commenters. Whether you like my shit, you don't like it, let me know. Thank you guys very much, man. Peace.